All right, guys, thank you for joining. What an exciting day. We had almost 90 people sign up, so half of them made it into the room almost on time. Let's see how it goes. Keep connecting with everybody in the chat room. After all, we are a clean energy network. So just to give you some insight about who we are, Janette, can you start sharing the presentation, please? So we're a clean energy network, and we were born in the midst of a pandemic. So you know how the outside world closed and the virtual one opened up. So we started creating networking events every 2 weeks to bring people together, professionals passionate about clean energy and sustainability. So we do a event every 2 weeks to network, talk about workplace strategies, topics about leadership, change, emotional intelligence within the workplace. What we're doing here today is our very first spotlight event. So what we want to do is shine a light on some of the really cool things our members are doing and share it with the world. So today we're going to be talking about end-of-life solutions for solar panels. Like what happens to solar panels when they're getting decommissioned? And I think we are seeing some decommissioning today, and always during construction, there are some panels that get damaged. So what happens to those? Next slide, please. So this is a clean energy network. The hosts are Gori, Anthony, and myself. I am a sales professional with 7 years of EV experience, actually 8. I just moved to the Bay Area, and I'm looking to transition into the energy side to support e-mobility from kind of the foundations. Here's a picture of our networking event. So we're going to share our page so you can join if you would like to keep connecting with professionals in the clean energy space. Next slide, please. And this is the time. We connect every 2 weeks, so you can come anytime. You're welcome. It runs all year round. I would like to introduce our co-host, Anthony, today.
Hey, I'm Anthony Gianfrancesco. Like Maggie said, I co-founded this clean energy network. It's been really great too. We've had a lot of regulars joining the group. Some of them are attending here, and I think they all really appreciate how deep we get into the workplace stuff. It goes beyond metrics, how much you can produce, training. It goes into the more emotional, intelligent side of things, which is it's a really, really cool side of the workplace to explore and learn. What I do is I spent 5 years now in the solar industry doing plans, permitting, interconnection applications. I'm an outsourcing specialist for companies, but also I have this idea of values-based consulting and having values come first. And that's really where this clean energy network came from. So I'm really, really excited to be able to be here and share some value with everyone here. And thank you, Janette and Chris, for agreeing to present. Next slide, please. I would like to take some time to introduce Janette and Chris. Janette has been in nonprofit leadership, training and speaking for over 20 years, and in 2020 began her second life career in the renewables industry. She loves to advocate for keeping solar panels out of the landfill. She is Director of Business Development for FabTech Solar Solutions, which offers solar panel refurbishing and recycling services. So a quiet round of applause for Janette, please. And let's go over Chris. So Chris was born and raised in Vermont and entered the solar industry in 2006. Since then, he has been fortunate to travel the world to discuss solar applications in various roles. Chris is the newest member of the team at Cascade Eco Minerals, and he brings his knowledge of the industry and a passion for responsible recycling. Chris lives in Portland now, with his wife Madeline, and enjoys photography, hiking, and travel. That's Portland, Oregon, not Maine. Some of you might from the East Coast might know that, but yeah, welcome Chris for the silent round of applause, or jazz hands. That's a good one. But yeah, Janette, I think it's free for you to take it away.
All right. So thank you so much for having us here. I'm excited, and I'm just going to pretend I'm in a room full of all you people and even invite you by a show of hands. How many of you have heard that there might be a little bit of a dark side to the future of the bright future of solar and renewables? And how many of you may have heard that the issue of solar panel end-of-life problems, have you ever heard that used in opposition to the clean energy transition? And how many of you can see the benefit of the entire industry working towards greener solutions for the solar panel end of life? So today we are going to look at end of life solutions for solar panels. And I want to thank Anthony and Maggie for having Chris and I here. And so grateful that Chris could bring his expertise in the mechanics of recycling to our conversation as well. And you'll get to hear from him. So in today's presentation, we're just going to take a quick look at the challenges that there are with solar panel end of life. We're going to then allow, Chris is going to talk to us a little bit about recycling and the mechanics and economics of recycling. And then I'm going to share a little bit about one of the other solutions, which is refurbishing and reuse. And then we'll share a little bit about what we can do moving forward, all of us. And also, if it's okay, we'd both, Chris and I, would like to just take a minute during our presentations to share a little bit about our companies that we represent and what we're doing on this issue. So we'll just move forward into the presentation. And the end is coming. This reminds me of this little story that I heard. And there was this guy driving down the street, and all of a sudden he sees these two guys with a sign, and one of the signs says, the end is coming. And another sign says, turn around, it's not too late. And the guy's driving, and he's like, oh, these religious nuts driving me crazy. And he turned the corner, and all of a sudden the bridge is out, and he drives off into the river. And he says, why couldn't they just say the bridge is out? So the end is coming, or is this just an opportunity for us to have a conversation about what's happening in the future with solar panel end of life and what we might be able to do about it as we have more awareness in the industry about it? So I think we know, most of us know a little bit about this, but we know solar panels have a finite lifespan. They work about 20 to 30 years, and many are starting to reach their end of life. Okay, and it is projected that by 2050, there's going to be 80 million metric tons of solar panels that would have reached their end of life. That's a lot. So we hear about a circular economy. What is that in regards to the solar industry? Well, it is using repurposing solutions when solar panels are not literally at their end of life, and also seeing that they are recycled, allowing those recycled materials to be used and made into other things, including new solar panels. So there are a few challenges that we face right now, and this is why it is important to move from landfilling solar panels to recycling and reuse. So again, one of the things that we've heard is, and I know that I have heard it, and I've heard of people working in residential even have heard, that the argument against solar is that, that there's going to be a huge problem, a trail of hazardous waste as some of these solar panels come to their end of life. We know that the solar industry has been growing, which is fabulous. It has been growing in the utility scale and also in the residential market. And so in this quote, the cumulative installed capacity in PV systems is nearing 100 gigawatts and would add as much as 500 to 600 gigawatts more by 2030. All right, so those are big numbers, and just wanted to break it down. What is 500 to 600 gigawatts in solar panels? And that is 1,500,400,000 panels. That's a lot of panels that are out there, and eventually, you know, components reach their end of life. So the downside to some of this growth is that they do have finite lifespans, and they are difficult and expensive to recycle, and they are being decommissioned in large numbers. And again, so we hear this term quoted, 80 million metric tons of solar panels will have reached their end of life. And so I have that for you too, I think here. 80 million metric tons is 3,500,396,480,000 50-pound solar panels. That's a lot. I know when we picked up 13,000 solar panels from a farm out in Texas a while back, took 24 truckloads to bring those 13,000 panels into our yard. And that was a lot of panels. So I can't even comprehend 3 billion. All right, so I'm going to have the opportunity to bring on Chris, as he's going to share with us some economics and mechanics of recycling solar. And I just want to say a little bit about Chris. Chris is one of our key recycling partners at Cascade Eco Minerals. And they are an amazing company, and he is a great guy, and I'm just really excited that I'm able to share this platform with him, and I know you guys are going to benefit from it as well. And so I think we're going to share, and Chris is going to take over here. Yay.
All right, and can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for the nice intro, Janette, and thank you, Anthony and Maggie, for setting this up and having us here today to discuss this. And I'm just going to go into some of the basics of how we are actually doing this, the recycling process. And then if any of you have questions, please feel free to either write those in the chat or jot them down so that we can discuss them at the end. We're hoping to have a question and answer period at the end. So I'm going to jump right into sort of how we do it and what makes it sustainable. So the basic premise here is that we're taking modules either from partners that have them in the field, or we're working with manufacturers as well, and we're taking them from the modules that you know and recognize and reducing them into their mineral components that you see here on the right. That's a pile of glass. And so to give us just a brief overview of who CEM is and how we fit into this, we are the solar division of Lubick Specialty Glass. And this picture here, this is actually one of the sites that Lubick functions on. This one's here is in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. And I like it. It's a good example of kind of the scale. Oops, sorry. Let me go back one. It gives you a good sense of the scale of the operation. You can see in the bottom edge of this photo, those are actually train tracks. We have a train line that goes directly into the facility, so we can load train cars with the material that we're basically producing here. And all these different piles you see, the different colors denote that there are different mineral compositions. Essentially, these are different sources of glass. And the name Cascade Eco Minerals, what we're really selling, the product we produce at the end of the day, are these mineral blends of glass that we're able to sell to our industrial partners down the line. And so Just some quick facts. In 2020, we processed roughly 500,000 tons of material. Put more simply, that's 1 billion pounds of glass coming in from these various sources. So whether it's windshields or CRTs or bottle glass, or obviously solar modules, what we're discussing today, that is what we do. We have a number of facilities. We are ISO and R2 certified. R2 is the recycling certification. And it's something that we carry, and we hold ourselves to a very high standard in terms of how we're handling this material and the safety of our employees. So, and worth mentioning, that 1 billion pounds here, a very small percentage of that was actually solar modules in 2020. So I say that more to say that we have the capacity to expand our operations. And really that's something we're going to be discussing a little further on. So just to go over again, the multiple locations, that one you just saw was the Upper Sandusky, Ohio location. That's really the home to our R&D. That's where we do a lot of the, the testing and things to improve our processes. That happens there. We have these other locations around the country. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. We have a facility that is in development right now in my neck of the woods. We're just working through the final stages of that process. So that's coming here in the future. But these are just our processing and consolidation sites that are around the country. Right. And then who do we work with? So, I mean, the short answer to this, and I've listed a bunch here, we really will work with anybody who has solar modules that they need to dispose of. We are a SIA member. We are one of their few approved recycling partners. And really what that means is that SIA has reviewed what we do and recognizes that our practices are really on the leading edge of this in the United States. It's still a new industry here, but they've recognized us there. We work with distribution. So we have distributors who are aggregating modules that they have either broken, that their customers may have actual end of life material, broken material. We work with them. We actually work with a number of manufacturers. So module companies that have come to the United States, LG, Jinko, Q-Cells and SunPower, and among others, work with us directly. And we handle sort of their, whatever doesn't clear quality control, we handle their scrap as well as modules that are in graded A that they can't sell under that grade. Obviously developers, anybody who's got a significant number of modules in the field, down to, I mean, I have conversations with homeowners and with small business owners who've got arrays that they want to see those recycled responsibly. And then finally, waste management companies, like the appropriately named waste management companies like that. So we're taking modules from a number of sources, and you can actually see us coming up here at SBI if you want to stop by our booth. We're at 2171. All right, so getting right into it after the plugs and all that stuff out of the way. So I'm going to do just the basic steps of the process. Really, the first step is identifying that modules are at end of life. And so we work with companies like FabTech who are out there actually decommissioning these systems, and any number of contractors who've taken that task on. We also work directly with developers and business owners, homeowners, whomever might actually have modules. Those get sent in to us. And so that process is pretty simple. We like to see modules palletized in much the same way that you receive them from the module manufacturers. So stacked, strapped, and wrapped is the best way to ensure that those get to us intact and not all over the back of the truck, which is never fun to deal with. And then really, we get right into it. So with preparation, we are taking anything off the module that we can. So basically we're reducing it down to just the module itself and the frame. So we're taking off the connection wires, any MC4 connectors, junction boxes that those wires are coming out of. And if, for example, you have a SunPower optimizer or an Enphase microinverter, you've got a smart module, we'll remove that as well. And any of that material, that MLPE, we work directly with a e-waste company who works on that material for us. Step 3, we remove the frame. This is a process we've developed, a specially capable machine to do this on both 60 and 72 cell modules, as well as the occasional, the smaller and larger, either 36 or 96 cell modules. We have a machine that'll kind of do everything. And then that aluminum frame is sent directly to a foundry. We work with a number of them around the country just to have the most immediate access to move that commodity out of our system. So once the frame is removed, you're left with a laminate. It's essentially what you see here on the floor, this smashed up laminate. This is just the back sheet, the solar cells and any wire and bus bar, and then obviously the glass on the front of it. And we run this through a shredding process, really just to reduce the size of the material. Handling full laminates is difficult. Handling these smaller pieces, roughly the size of your hand, is much simpler for the next step in the process. and that is the first grind. So this is inside one of our facilities there in Upper Sandusky. And what we're doing is we're grinding the material through a proprietary process to essentially remove as much of the glass as we can from that laminate material. So all that stuff is glued together and it's very rugged. It has to last, in the field for 25 or 30 years. We're removing as much of the glass as we can. And then in the second or the sixth step, we separate out the material. So the EVA, the encapsulant, the solar cells, they're lighter than glass. And so we're able to separate them out with some simple mechanical separation. And then we're able to, in a similar process, remove any wire and additional metals from that process. And really, we're sending all those commodities on to direct partners that we work with. Now, where does all the glass go? This is the part of it that I think is the most interesting, at least from my perspective, is knowing how we actually are able to monetize what we're extracting from these models, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, which is appropriate because where we're starting is road beads. Now, we actually manufacture our own road beads. We have a facility that makes these, and really all they are is, and I had never heard of them before this, but they're little beads that are sprayed onto highway lines. And those small spheres of glass through basically reflectivity are enhancing how those lines light up when your headlights hit them at night. So this is a huge industry in the United States. There's constant demand for this. So this is a great resource for certain mineral blends that we're producing. Another option would be fiberglass manufacturing. Obviously, fiberglass is made into any number of products. One of the more common ones that you might see is that pink or white insulation that may be in your attic. And what we do here is we're properly sizing the material we send. And again, with that mineral blend, we have specific chemistry we send to these companies that we work with. And it increases the efficiency of their process. So using the same amount of energy, they're actually able to produce more fiberglass and make more money, which is obviously a plus for them. So fiberglass is a big user of our products. And then filler, I mean, it's a simple term. A common use is automotive paint. Glass powder, when it's reduced to a very fine form, it really helps to create that sort of hard shell that you expect from automotive paint. Another good example is in concrete. The actual glass product through chemistry that's a little bit beyond me. It was explained to me in detail, but basically the glass blends help the concrete to cure, making the concrete stronger and the project ready faster. So just an interesting application for downstream. And then maybe an easier one to picture is abrasives. Sandblasting is used in any number of industries. And so glass cullet can be used there as an abrasive media. And so that's an excellent application for us as well. And then something you probably have around you right now, glass containers almost always contain some percentage of recycled material. And again, those mineral blends that we're generating, exactly, Maggie's got a glass right now. We're able to sell those into the container industry where they're used, again, to really increase the efficiency of their process. So those are some places that glass can go. And now getting into probably what a lot of you are interested to hear is how much does it cost? Now, we're trying to operate on margins thin enough that we can basically remain profitable and look for volume. We're looking for a large amount of solar modules, or really any glass stream that we end up handling. More of it is better for us. And so obviously we're extracting commodities, aluminum, copper, glass. We do get, we sell those materials and that mitigates some of the cost, but there is a processing fee for this service. And so we base our price on weight. So the weight of a given module or of a batch of modules dictates the pricing. The volume of load is going to help us figure out where you belong in the tiered pricing. So long story shorter, depending on the number of cells and the weight of the module, you can expect to pay between, say, $12 and $20 per module for the recycling process with us. And that gets you assured destruction. You get a certificate that those modules have actually been processed and reduced into commodities that we can sell on into the market. Now, processing capability. This is an important thing to understand because any stream of waste that we're processing, we can scale to meet the demand. And so it's also important to understand that glass this may be easier to believe than I originally thought, but it's very, very tough on equipment. We've got, hardened tool steel in a lot of these applications that just gets chewed up by working on this laminate glass that is coming in these solar modules. And so we actually have our own in-house machine shop that is constantly replacing parts, improving the ruggedness of the different machines that we use, and making proprietary machinery for us. That's one way we're able to keep our operation running as often and as, we can't really afford to have downtime given the premise here. And so, yeah, the ability to scale, that's really the cornerstone of our business. As we see demand rise, we can outfit our shops to process more material as time goes on. And so the future, where are we headed with this? And it's kind of, and I hate to use it, it's such a tired analogy, but it's chicken and egg, which is going to come first. We can't just build all of these lines at all of our facilities with the anticipation that modules are coming. We're essentially not waiting, we are processing modules today, but we need to see larger volumes to justify the additional expenditures in R&D and just frankly in capital expenditures on equipment and on new facilities. So it's a matter of really developing the demand right now by telling people that we're doing this and by educating the solar industry stakeholders that this is something that we can actually help them with today, so that in the future we can process more material. And one way we could do that, and this is something that could be considered controversial because it does directly benefit me in the short term, is that we could ban modules from the landfill. Now, I say it with a smile because obviously I have a vested interest in seeing as much recycling as possible, but ultimately it's going to drive others into the industry. It would force, it would give a green light to companies who may want to do this to try to get in a regional basis. And ultimately, competition is going to drive innovation and bring the cost of recycling down, make it more ubiquitous. So it kind of flies in the face of typical business. I normally would not invite competition, but this is a dire need in this country with, Janette touched on just how many millions of pounds of modules are in service today versus, what we're expecting to come in the coming years. There is a tremendous amount of material that right now without intervention is going to end up in a hole in the ground. And that should be, of concern to anybody who is handling any volume of solar material, is we don't want to just throw it in the ground and leave it there. And so that's, sort of what we see happening in the future with this. And again, just sort of touching on similar points, it's if we want to be sustainable, we're at a turning point in this industry where all of us have, for various reasons, and some of us, more than others, want to be green. We want to see this industry make renewable energy more ubiquitous, make it more available to consumers, and try to kind of save the world in some ways. And if we're going to do that, we really need to jump into refurbishment, reuse, recycling, and seeing these modules not just get thrown into a dump. And so not only is the circular economy that everybody talks about, not only is it possible, it's happening. We already sell these chemical blends that we make into the float glass industry, where modules are being made with material that was once already in a solar module. So it's happening today. We just want to see it happen at a much larger scale. And again, maybe sort of a tired analogy, but a rising tide lifts all boats. If all of us jump into this, we all stand to grow with this industry having this sustainable outlet for the waste we're creating by installing huge fields of solar modules, as we need a place for that material to go when it's no longer, it's not justifiable to stay in the field. And ultimately, the long-term goal is to make responsible disposal the only option end users want to see happen to their solar modules, whether it's a homeowner or the biggest developer in the country. If end users are pushing this, we're going to see adoption. So that's really what we're here to do. And my role right now is to tell people that this is possible today and to basically reach out to all of you. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to pass it back to Janette here for her portion of the presentation.
While we do the transition, we have a poll for you guys. We're very curious to see what you think.
Janette, you can go ahead and get your, yeah, there you go. Nice. little commercial break. This event was sponsored by Colgate. No, it was not. I'm just kidding.
All right, do you want to put the answer? We're going to close the poll now. So if you're not from the solar industry, I guess don't answer for now. Sorry, I didn't put an option there for you.
That's all good. It's all good. It's a random sampling, you know. There could be people in here who are at the same company, so. Okay. Let's show you the results. Honestly, that's way more than I expected. So, but I guess we have a lot of people looking for more support and coverage. About 50% of you. 2% of you are happy, and 14% didn't add up with the numbers. And you're all seeing this, but 31% haven't even thought about it yet. So I'm actually really happy that you're all here.
How many respondents were there, Anthony?
I cannot do the math, but about like half of the people voted.
Awesome.
But I'm gonna stop sharing
Thanks for
this. And yeah, take it away, Janette.
All right. Thanks for that little poll. And Chris, thank you so much for sharing that. So one of the other solutions besides recycling is refurbishing and reuse, and they definitely go together. So I'd like to just take a few minutes and share a little bit about refurbishing. That is, if my screen would move. There we go. So if I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our company and what we do. FabTech has been a family business since 1999. And it's kind of an interesting story with our founder, Bob Lawrence. He started this business, 1999, basically as an electronics salvaging and fixing of electronics with computers and office phones and such, and reselling them. And then about 5 years ago, he was asked if he wanted a bunch of solar panels, and thinking that he could fix the laminates on the back of them. If he could do that, he could sell them. So he took those in and bought some laminating machinery and began to fix those. And now, less than 5 years later, we love giving hundreds of thousands of panels a second life. Not only does it save the landfill, but it also helps with the cost of recycling. It provides the opportunity for people also to have the use of solar for a much reduced price, so that they can jump in and reap the benefits of solar. So we also have multiple locations. We have our main location in Gilbert, Arizona, and then just opened on the East Coast. And those are our refurbishing processing centers. And then we use partners for recycling nationally, like Chris's company. All right, so let's go ahead and look then at refurbishing and how that works. So every different solar project has a different end of life. Let's see, where do these panels come from? End of construction damages, there's usually about a 1 to 3% of damages at construction, and those need to go someplace, and those can be very large projects, so 1 to 3% can be, thousands and thousands of panels. Also see manufacturer defects, where the manufacturer doesn't need those, and we can refurbish those and resell those. Also, commercial rooftops needing replacement that companies may go in and do a decommission on. Then those panels usually have life in them. So we can take those panels and give them new life. All right. Also, in operation and maintenance, sometimes the module components have early failure, which we can fix. Weather incidences or fires in sites can cause problems with thousands of solar panels being damaged. Also, decommission sites for a variety of reasons. And then site repowering. So the site wants to repower using a higher wattage module. So how long do solar panels last? So most are warranted by the manufacturer for 20 to 30 years. And they're actually guaranteed pretty much to not lose more than 20% decrease over 20 years, 25 years. And between the first 10 to 12 years might be just 10%. But we've also seen that many times in reality, it drops less than that, maybe sometimes even 6 to 8% after 25 years. And I have seen different situations of modules that have been on a very, very long time, and they haven't lost very much of their efficiency. So what makes a panel valuable? Well, it must be able to be sold in the secondary marketplace. So as a general rule, has at least 15 to 20 years left in it, generally over 250 watts, no broken glass. So if a panel's got broken glass, it is set for recycling. Severely damaged back sheets as well would go to recycling. If it's in working condition, or if it's repairable, for example, to replace a junction box or the wiring, or if it just tests 80% capacity or higher. And so what use is there for these refurbished panels? Well, refurbished solar panels, they're sold very inexpensively, and it does make it affordable for those that normally couldn't afford new solar. We sell a lot, do-it-yourselfer, RVers, off-gridders, and international customers are interested, and also donating to nonprofits that can organize installations. So we mentioned that a minute. We value modules that are typically less than 12 years old, usually wattages 250 and up. We also accept modules that have known physical or electrical issues as well as no issues. We also like to work with many manufacturers taking their off-grade material, and we can always ask for an evaluation if you want to know if your panels have value. So what are they worth? The value depends upon a number of issues. Generally, there's salvage value, pricing from 3 cents to 6 cents for older but usable or repairable decent condition modules from a decommission. A used higher wattage in good condition can go higher, and all pricing is negotiated. So there's a lot of other things that will come into play as far as the freight in transporting. So always ask for a quote. So what is our process? So first of all, when solar panels arrive at one of our processing centers, they first of all go through a visual inspection and basically separated into two piles. Broken glass indicates the need for recycling, and then they go to our staging area to be sent to one of our partner recycling centers. So we've got two piles. We've got the broken glass or really damaged back sheets, and that goes to recycling. And then we've got the others, remaining good panels, to go onto our staging area that goes into our warehouse to be cleaned, to be repaired, to be tested, and to be prepared for sales. Sometimes panels are debranded. That is, the manufacturer's labeling and serial numbers are all removed, and then they're private labeled. Okay, and then everything that goes out, and this is important too, these all go out for for a 1-year warranty to make sure that the customer receives them and that they're tested and they're working. It's just a little example of, you know, the first is just a sorting out in the large 15-acre field where panels are brought in, they're starting to be sorted, they go through a washing machine and then into the warehouse. There's different stations if they need repairing or debranding or cleaning and finishing. So reuse helps pay for recycling, and reuse helps make it possible to offset these costs of freight. So freight costs do make recycling prohibitive. Like I said, I mean, you can, it takes, when we took out 13,000 panels from a site, that's 24 semi trucks. That's a lot of freight costs, and we know freight is really adding up. So the refurbishing option, so we're a one-stop, so we'll bring it in, and anything that can be valued for reuse, then there's a payment made for that, which goes against, or it's a value and goes against the costs of recycling. And it does really help the company, and I've seen it really help companies decide to recycle. The other thing about FabTech I wanted to, we're not just some panel broker that thought, oh, I think I'll get in this business. As a family-run business for 22 years, we have an established customer base that has purchased used items and has come to trust our reliability and customer service. And that infrastructure of distributing used solar panels ensures that they're going into the marketplace with integrity, and we stand behind the sale of our panels, offering that warranty. All right, so basically that's how this process works. Is someone may call, we make arrangements to ship all the panels to the nearest facility to be sorted. Anything that's broken, we ship to the nearest the closest recycling facility that has already passed all of our requirements, just like Chris said, the R2 and the ISO, and making sure that they are compliant. And then there's charge for recycling, and there's a charge for freight. And then there's a payment for any panels that have refurb option. So I'm excited to just keep having this conversation and ask you all too to just further this awareness of recycling and refurbishing for used solar panels. All right. So I'm going to touch just a little bit on the benefits of having a company recycling reuse and what can we do, some ideas for what we can do, and then we'll move into the group to have more questions. So there are benefits for a company to making the decision and making the commitment to recycling and reuse. So, you know, that your marketing and PR can reflect your core values to participating in this solar circular economy, and you're known as in your network as a part of the solution and not the problem. And then what could be done? And so Chris and I we put a few things down here, and then we'll discuss as well. What could be done? Well, an extended producer responsibility approach, which makes manufacturers of future waste responsible for disposal on behalf of their customers. And that only happens with policy. Also, landfill bans in place, which we've talked about that. Department of Energy spearheading the effort now, they are, for legislation for PV panel waste. And it really could duplicate the electronic waste legislation as a model, which makes manufacturers pay for their waste in advance, forming some sort of a recycling fund. Number 4, factoring these end-of-life process and costs into the power purchase agreements and operation and maintenance. So in other words, budgeting in advance for solar panel disposal and recycling costs, that it's a part of the budget. Number 5, the U.S. to establish an intelligent reuse recycling policy based upon the reduce, reuse, and recycle to create growth opportunities. All right, what can you do? And I think we all are doing this part right now, and that's to be aware and join the discussion and educational awareness to stop landfilling solar panels. Awareness is the first step. I mean, a lot of people aren't aware of this at all. Support legislation for new solar panel waste recycling. If you have the opportunity and if it applies, make the choice for recycling versus landfilling. Create an end-of-life plan. In other words, plan ahead for when you need to dispose of your solar panels and budget in advance for recycling. If the panels can be refurbished, you can save some costs. Be the change you want to see in the industry. All right. All right, so I'll turn this back over to Maggie and Anthony, and I can take this off the screen if you want me to then.
Yeah, sounds good. That last slide is just the survey that we will be sharing the link to in the chat room, so that you guys at the end of the event just click on the link, open up in a window, and then just look at it after the event ends. So you can just give us 8 quick answers about what you thought about the event so that we can make these better for the future. We have a lot of questions coming in, so thank you so much for trying to keep up. Some really good questions. So one that I wanted to focus on, well, since Janette was just talking, Martin has a question for you. Does FabTech help with setting up pallets to be delivered to site and packing material?
Generally not. Generally, we ask that the site palletize and prepare them for shipment. We have done it when it's a really large job, and then that it could afford labor to go out there and do it. But generally, most people prepare it. Then we organize all the logistics and the shipping to go up and pick them up, though.
All right. We have a question from Paige. What are factors that would prevent panels from being recycled? How can panel owners be prepared for recycling when they don't plan to recycle their panels for another 10 years? So that's to Chris or Janette.
Sure. I mean, I can help address that. There's all kinds of factors that keep things from being recycled. Logistics, freight is a constant concern, and that's some other questions touch on this as well. One thing that panel owners can do now is just, budgeting based on the numbers that we've sort of quoted here today. You can plan on paying roughly that in the future, and if things go the way that we anticipate, prices will not likely go up. They're in fact likely to go down as we're pressured to innovate and improve our processes. So I suppose the answer is to budget for end of life plan.
What are some of the things you see current customers doing when quoting their customers and installations, etc.?
Sure. No, it's a good question. O&M, operation and maintenance budgets, more often than not, as we see new projects coming in, we're seeing the developers plan for end-of-life decommissioning. So they're budgeting for not just the module recycling or disposal. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a crew that has to go in and remove the modules from the frames, take apart the system and do it well, not just throw everything into a dumpster, so to speak. So, planning for a true decommissioning plan at the end of of the life of the system, that's what I see as appropriate in terms of, a big commercial system or frankly, any system is to have a plan in place.
Yeah, just unmute yourself.
Couldn't unmute myself there. Thank you.
I was wondering if it was me.
So you see, so basically on the invoice, some of your customers are putting in those costs and passing it on to the consumer.
I've seen it done a number of ways, but effectively, yes, is that they're building in that cost on the front end so that it's not a surprise, because I feel like a lot of what happens right now with existing arrays is that it wasn't accounted for 20 years ago or 15 years ago, where they did not plan on the expense of true disassembly and decommissioning. Now developers are factoring that in, and that's something I would promote is, planning on at some point in the life of the system, it's got to be taken apart. And so building that in upfront makes sense so that no one's surprised at the end of the life.
And this is something companies are proactively doing because it's not mandated by lawmakers, correct?
Correct. In fact, most of what we see happening isn't based on laws. I've myself called, and tells you a bit about me, but I've called landfills all over the country and just kind of said, I'm a contractor. I have a pickup truck full of modules. Can I bring them there? 9 times out of 10, you can. And so, having a plan that's not just throwing them away can be difficult to sell in terms of it's cheap and easy to put them in the landfill, but long-term, there are implications to what that's going to mean for our industry and for our environment in terms of just throwing these things and letting them sit for decades is not really a great solution.
Yeah, especially since some of the materials could be toxic. So we have a question from Roderick. Is there an issue with toxic components like mercury, arsenic, etc.? And how is it handled with the recycling process?
Sure. No, and I saw another one about RCRA. This is a common question. As far as crystalline solar modules go, and I probably should have been more clear, what we are processing at CEM today is pretty much exclusively crystalline solar modules. So these silicon-based cells in the typical, laminate or bifacial format. We are not licensed or able to handle thin films from companies like First Solar or Ascent. The cadmium telluride profiles that are in those modules, those require additional hazmat handling procedures that we are not really interested or are viable for us at this time. It's one of the reasons that First Solar is one of the SIA approved recycling partners, is they handle most, if not all, of their material that's being decommissioned in the United States and around the world. So I don't know if that addresses all the questions. I think that one of the things we hear often, there is lead content, especially in the solder that's used and the intercell connections. And so we have studied extensively, and we handle lead just by virtue of working with CRT glass from old television and computer monitors. So we have protocols in place to handle lead, and it is basically removed in the process as we get to these mineral blends and handled appropriately. But the volumes of it are so very low that in terms of our process today with crystalline solar modules, we don't see it being a major concern for us. And then I guess sorry, go ahead.
No, please finish.
I was just going to say, to touch on one of the long-term implications of landfilling modules is that lead in the form of the solder, if it's sitting there over time, and again, this is a lot of hyperbole, it's theoretical, but over time, modules will break and that lead potentially seep into the groundwater. And individual level, one module, there's probably not enough lead in there to really affect things. But if we're talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of modules, we don't know if there is potential. I mean, the likelihood is that lead would be seeping into the environment. So that is a concern if we were going to be landfilling these.
Okay. And how are the panels tested when considering a repurposing option? I think that would go for Janette here.
Thanks. Yeah, they are tested with I don't know what kind of equipment they've got back there, but to test to make sure that they're at least 80% of capacity. And then again, when you're dealing with thousands of solar panels that are used, that's why it's real important that we have that warranty. So if anything's going on, that they can send them back, and we will just pay for the shipping and send them out to them.
Okay, we're nearing the end of the event, but I think one more question is, freight being a considerable portion of the cost to recycle, do you have ideas of what the most cost-effective way to stack and transport would be?
Well, can I respond to that?
Yeah.
That's why, we find that people don't recycle because of that, because of freight. It is a big expense, and to have to ship in different places. And so that's why it has been important for FabTech to be able to find recyclers throughout the country, because there's going to be people that we work with that they're not going to even ship to us in Arizona or Savannah. And I want to make sure that I've got partnerships throughout the country that they can ship to. So, and that we've already done some due diligence on, just so that we can save those from going to really the landfill, and making sure that they start to get recycled.
Yeah. And if you have just a few broken panels, is it possible to connect smaller installers with larger ones who already have a recycling process?
Well,
we have a few small installers in the group, so.
Sure, I can touch on that. One of the reasons we're working with distribution and even larger or groups of installers is anytime that you can save on freight, anytime you can get more modules in one place, everybody spends less on freight. And CEM or FabTech, none of us are profiting from sending things around this country. It's an expense. And so anytime that you can get together and either work with a distributor or work together to put together a larger load, that makes all the sense in the world, is to try to aggregate these modules into one place.
One of the things with one of the solar distributors, CED Green Tech, if installers work with them, we do something with them where we ask them to collect their damaged, their returns, solar panels, and then we will take it all for free and ship it to ourselves, because we know that we can salvage out of that, and then we will pay to have the damages recycled. And I hope that we can even get more of those distribution centers on board with something like that, because there's one, almost in every city throughout the country. So more distribution centers that can get on board with things like that, then we can get those panels recycled with small installers and residential owners to work with their installers.
Well, I think that'll wrap it up for us. We're at the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful to everyone's time. Thank you all for joining. We'll be sending out an email with the recording, some PowerPoints, and also the contact information of Janette and Chris. So if we didn't answer your question, you can chat them directly about the recycling, the programs, the networks, any contacts they may have, any contacts you may have. If one of their goals is to build a distribution or a network, you all are the network, and you all would be important to building that. So please look forward to seeing that. We'll also send out a survey as well at the end to see if you want to see any more topics from us, what topics you'd like to see, who you'd like to talk, or any of that. Or if you'd like to talk, what your topic would be, that would be really great.
Yeah.
Also, Maggie, link the form down below.
Yes, the form is in the chat room. So what we're trying to intend is to reduce mining in other areas of the world and create these recycling centers where these panels are being decommissioned already. So I know, Sagar, we couldn't answer some of your tough questions, but that's definitely, questions to address your policymakers and lawmakers to help protect the local environment where these products are being mined for to make solar panels and other things. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. If you had a question we couldn't address today, we're all happy to help, Janette and Chris as well. And we'll keep in touch. Make sure to follow us on Eventbrite if you want to see if you want to join future events such as this, or to network every 2 weeks.